Hey friends, so in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the metaphilosophy at work here, and then present a couple of short criticisms of some of the things that Arola says. So first off, metaphilosophy. So what is metaphilosophy? It is the philosophy of philosophy, right? Or less annoyingly, it's when we're thinking philosophically about philosophy. So the reason why I want to mention this is that the topics we looked at in the other videos on experience and truth and communities and individuals, we presented these things separately, right, as Arola does. But as he's also quick to note, these topics are all intricately tied up with one another. So you'll recall that we made the point in one of the previous videos that everything is connected to everything else, right? And this in the Native American metaphysics. That's just as true for the philosophical concepts as well, right? So you might recall that in the Experience and Truth video, we talked about being open to the ways in which the world might manifest itself. But we also mentioned that same point in connection with communities and individuals. And we talked about the dynamic character of individual community relationships, right? That's related to the notion of conceptual schemes or matrices that inform our judgments, or really that ground our judgments, because a lot of the conceptual schemes we have come from being members of communities, right? And we're dynamically related to them, to our communities. So all of these ideas are really tightly bound up with one another. So that's just something I want to keep in mind, because as we see in Descartes, right, we can very easily pull these threads apart, right? And they have connections with one another. But you can, in principle, hold on to some ideas while chucking other ones, right? But it's a lot harder to do that with this Native American philosophy we've been working with, because a lot of it is really organically sort of intertwined, right? That one part is organically intertwined with other parts. I started that sentence and really had nowhere to go. So thanks for hanging in there, friends. Okay, now, a little bit of criticism here, because what is philosophy without criticism? So one of the key points that I want to highlight as part of the criticism here is this. We find Arola throughout the piece saying that Native American philosophy tends to resist the move to abstraction, right? Plato does this, chef's kiss, really well. In fact, most of Plato is sort of transcending the world around us to get to the realm of forms, right? Native American philosophy says, don't do that. Hang out in the world down here. Observe how the world down here is going, which I am totally sympathetic to. Still, it seems like we shouldn't be like allergic to abstraction, right? Why? Well, mathematics is a domain of abstraction par excellence, right? Math abstracts from the world around us. But we can think about the very earliest days of mathematics as ways to sort of think about, or ways to solve very practical problems. So we all know that the area of a rectangle is just, the length of one side times the length of the other side. Why would we know that? Well, it's a way to solve a problem about how big a field one might have, or how much land one might have to plot, right? If you have to space things out, which, as I'm gardening more and more these days, you need to space things out. You can sort of more or less accurately predict how many plants you can have in a certain area. But all of this is just mathematics, which involves abstraction, right? So that's one piece of criticism is, or I guess one word of caution as we're thinking about Native American philosophy, is that the way Arola presents it is that we ought to be very wary of abstraction. But abstraction serves us in a lot of ways and helps us solve a lot of very practical problems. So that's one. The second point is closely related to it, which is that the world is dynamic and it's constantly changing. And so there are no permanent truths, right? Cool. But again, one might point to math and say something like, well, surely there are some mathematical truths that are like definitely true, right? So for example, Euclid proved many years ago, many thousands of years ago, that there's no largest prime number, right? We know that with the Pythagorean theorem, we know that, for a right triangle, the square of the one side times the square of the other, or plus the square of the other side, gives you the square of the hypotenuse, right? And we have proofs for these things, right? And they work in the world around us. So when the Native American philosopher Arola says that there are no eternal truths, we might say, well, it seems like math is going to be a pretty good candidate for that, if anything. So how deep does this criticism go? Well, you can actually think of it as a criticism of Descartes, but from another, like a criticism of Descartes, but from another direction, right? So Descartes uses math and geometry as like his exemplar topics for knowledge, right? Math and logic, they really know something there, right? But the rest of the world, not so much, right? We only have, sort of justifiable beliefs about the world, but we don't know anything about the world. Native American, right? So Arola, in reporting about a Native American philosophy, says that we can't really know anything, right? That truth is an unstable and constantly changing thing. And so we can sort of have stability in the world around us, but there's nothing permanent, right? So it's like you can think of math and empirical stuff, right? Like Descartes raises up math and sort of drops the value of the empirical stuff, whereas Arola switches that, right? Where he raises the value of the empirical stuff, but drops the value of the abstract stuff like math and logic. So maybe it's not even really a criticism so much as like recognition of the different starting points of the different conceptual schemes that we're working with. And that if you're in one, it's hard to lob criticism at the other. But nonetheless, I think they both have important insights, which are, I think, good to take to heart.